Introduction and Dramatis Personae for Agamemnon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Agamemnon by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, translated by Frank Justus Miller. Introduction. The blood feud between Atreus and Thyestes was not ended with the terrible vengeance which Atreus wreaked upon his brother. It was yet in fate that Thyestes should live to beget upon his own daughter a son, Aegisthus, who should slay Atreus and bring ruin and death upon the great Atrides Agamemnon. The Trojan War is done. And now the near approach of the victorious king, bringing his captives and treasure home to Argos, has been announced. But little does he dream to what a home he is returning. Poor Clytemnestra, enraged at Agamemnon because he had sacrificed her daughter Iphigenia at Aulis to appease the winds, and full of jealousy because he brings Cassandra as her rival home, estranged also by the long-continued absence of her lord, but most estranged by her own guilty union with Aegisthus, is now plotting to slay Agamemnon on his return, gaining thus at once revenge and safety from his wrath. Dramatis Personae. Agamemnon, king of Argos and leader of all the Greeks in their war against Troy. Read by Mapstone. Ghost of Thyestes, returned to earth to urge on his son to the vengeance which he was born to accomplish. Read by Mapstone. Aegisthus, son of Thyestes by an incestuous union with his daughter, paramour of Clytemnestra.
Read by Beeswax Candle.
Clytemnestra, wife of Agamemnon, who has been plotting with Aegisthus against her husband in his absence at Troy.
Read by Wendy Katz Hiller.
Chorus of Argive women.
Read by Rita Boutros.
Eurybates, messenger of Agamemnon.
Read by Greg Giordano.
Cassandra, daughter of Priam, captive of Agamemnon.
Read by Jen Broda.
Electra, daughter of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra.
Read by Sonia.
Strophius, king of Phocis.
Read by Todd.
Nurse.
Read by Rapunzelina.
Band of captive Trojan women.
Read by Agnes Robert Bear.
Stage directions. Read by Inkel. The scene is laid partly within and partly without the palace of Agamemnon at Argos or Mycenae on the day of the return of the king from his long absence at Troy, beginning in the period of darkness just preceding the dawn. End of introduction and Dramatis Personae.
Act 1 of Agamemnon by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, translated by Frank Justus Miller. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Act 1. Ghost of Thyestes.
Escaped from gloomy Pluto's murky realm, and leaving Tartarus' deep pit I come, all doubting which abode I hate the more. That world I flee, but this I put to flight. My soul shrinks back, my limbs do quake with fear. I see my father's house, my brother's too. Here is the ancient seat of Pelops' race. In this proud hall it is Pelasgians wont to crown their kings. Here sit those overlords whose hands the kingdom's haughty sceptre wield. Here is their council chamber, here they feast. Let me go hence. Were it not better far to sit beside the dark, sad pools of Styx, and see the hellhound's black and tossing mane? Where one, bound fast upon a whirling wheel, back to himself is borne, where fruitless toil is mocked for ever by the rolling stone, where living vitals glut the vulture's greed, consumed but e'er renewed, and one old man, by mocking waves surrounded, seeks in vain to sate his burning thirst, dire punishment for that he strove to trick the immortal gods. But ranked with mine, how slight that old man's sin! Take count of all whose impious deeds on earth make them to tremble at the bar of hell. By my dread crimes will I outdo them all, but not my brother's crimes. 3 sons of mine lie buried in me, yea, mine own dear flesh have I consumed, nor this the only blot with which dire fortune's hand hath stained my soul. But daring greater sin, she bade me seek, O foul impiety, my daughter's arms. Bold for revenge, I dared and did the deed, and so fearful cycle was complete. As son's the sire, so sire the daughter filled. Then were the laws of nature backward turned. I mingled sire with grandsire, sons with grandsons. Yea, monstrous! Husband and father did I join, and drove the day back to the shades of night. But fate at last, though doubtful, long deferred, hath had regard unto my evil plight, and brought the day of vengeance near. For lo, this King of Kings, this leader of the Greeks, this Agamemnon comes, whose royal flag, 1,000 Grecian vessels following, once filled the Trojan waters with their sails. Now 10 bright suns have run their course, and Troy has been o'erthrown, and he is close at hand to place his neck in Clytemnestra's power. Now, this house shall flow again with blood, but this of Atreus' stock. Swords, axes, darts I see, and that proud head with murderous stroke asunder cleft. Now impious crimes are near, now treachery, slaughter, blood, the feast is spread. The cause, Aegisthus, of thy shameful birth is come at last. But why hangs down thy head in shame? Why hesitates thy faltering hand and sinks inactive? Why dost counsel take within thy heart, and turn away, and ask whether this deed becomes thee? Do but think upon thy mother, then wilt thou confess it doth become thee well. But what drags out in long delay this summer night's brief span to winter's hours of darkness? And what cause prevents the stars from sinking in the sky? The sun shrinks from my face. I must away, that so he may bring back the light of day.
Exit. Chorus of Argive women.
On fortune's headlong brink they stand, who hold the sceptre in their hand. No safe assurance can they know, who on too lofty pathways go. But care on care pursues them to the last, their souls assailed and vexed by every blast. As seas on Libya's sandy shore, their waves in ceaseless billows pour, as Euxine's swelling waters rise beneath the lowering northern skies, where bright Bootes wheels his team high o'er the ocean's darksome stream. With such assaults, by such wild tempests blown, does fortune batter at a kingly throne. Who would be feared, in fear must live. No kindly night can refuge give, nor sleep, that comforts all the rest, can bring care freedom to his breast. What throne so safe on such foundations stands, that may not be destroyed by impious hands? For justice, shame, the virtues all, e'en wifely faith, soon flee the hall where courtiers dwell. Within there stands Bellona, dire with bloody hands. Erinys too, the dogging fate of them who hold too high estate, which any hour from high to low may bring. Though arms be lacking, wiles be none, still is the will of fortune done. By force of his own greatness falls the king. 'Tis ever thus, the bellying sail fears the oar strong, though favoring gale. The tower feels rainy Auster's dread, if to the clouds it rear its head. Huge oaks most feel the whirlwind's lash, high mountains most with thunder crash. And while the common herd in safety feeds, their mighty leader, marked for slaughter, bleeds. Fate places us on high, that so to surer ruin we may go. The meanest things in longest fortune live, then happy he whose modest soul in safety seeks a nearer goal. Fearing to leave the friendly shore, he rows with unambitious oar, content in low security to thrive.
End of Act 1. Act 2 of Agamemnon by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, translated by Frank Justice Miller. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Act 2. Clytemnestra.
Why, sluggish soul, dost thou safe counsel seek? Why hesitate? Closed is the better way. Once thou couldst chastely guard thy widowed couch, and keep thy husband's realm with wifely faith. But now, long since has faith thy palace fled the homely virtues, honor, piety, and chastity which goes but ne'er returns. Loose be thy reins, swift speed thy wanton course. The safest way through crime is by the path of greater crime. Consider in thy heart all woman's wiles, what faithless wives have done, bereft of reason, blind and passion-driven. What bloody deeds stepmother's hands have dared, or what she dared, ablaze with impious love, who left her father's realm for Thessaly. Dare sword, dare poison, else in stealthy flight must thou go hence with him who shares thy guilt. But who would talk of stealth, of exile, flight? Such were thy sister's deeds. Some greater crime, some mightier deed of evil suits thy hand.
O Grecian queen, illustrious leader's child, what sayest thou there in whispered mutterings? Or what unbridled deeds within thy breast by reckless passion tossed, dost meditate. Though thou be silent, yet thy face declares thy hidden pain in speech more eloquent. Whate'er thy grief, take time and room for thought. Time often cures what reason cannot heal.
Too dire my grief to wait time's healing hand. My very soul is scorched with flaming pains. I feel the goads of fear and jealous rage, the throbbing pulse of hate, the pangs of love. Base love that presses hard his heavy yoke upon my heart, and holds me vanquished quite. And always, mid those flames that vex my soul, though faint indeed, all downcast, all undone, shame struggles on. By shifting seas I'm tossed, as when here wind, there tide impels the deep, the waves stand halting twixt the warring powers. And so, I'll strive no more to guide my bark, where wrath, where grief, where hope shall bear me on. There will I speed my course. My helmless ship I've given to the sport of winds and floods. Where reason fails, 'tis best to follow chance.
O rash and blind who follows doubtful chance!
Who fears a doubtful chance if 'tis his last?
Thy fault may find safe hiding if thou wilt.
Nay, faults of royal homes proclaim themselves.
Dost thou repent the old, yet plan the new?
To stop midway in sin is foolishness.
His fears increase who covers crime with crime.
But iron and fire oft aid the healer's art.
Yet desperate measures no one first attempts.
The path of sin is headlong from the first.
Still, let thy wifely duty hold thee back.
What long deserted wife regards her lord?
Your common children, hast no thought of them?
I do think on my daughter's wedding rites. High-born Achilles, and my husband's lies.
She freed our Grecian fleet from long delay, and waked from their dull calm the sluggish seas.
Oh, shameful thought, that I, the heaven-born child of Tyndareus, should give my daughter up to save the Grecian fleet? I see once more in memory my daughter's wedding day, which he made worthy of base Pelops' house, when, with his pious face, this father stood before the altar fires. O monstrous rites! E'en Calchas shuddered at his own dread words and backward shrinking fires. O bloody house, that ever wades through crime to other crime! With blood we soothe the winds, with blood we war.
Yet by that blood 1,000 vessels sailed.
But not with favoring omens did they sail. The port of Aulis fairly drave them forth. So, launched in war, he still no better fared. Smit with a captive's love, unmoved by prayer, he held as spoil the child of Phoebus' priest. E'en then, as now, a sacred maiden's thrall. Nor could the stern Achilles bend his will, nor he whose eye alone can read the fates, a faithful seer to us, to captives mild. Nor his pest-smitten camp and gleaming pyres. When baffled Greece stood tottering to her fall, this man with passion pined, had time for love, thought ever on amours, and lest his couch should be of any Phrygian maid bereft, he lusted for Achilles' beauteous bride, nor blushed to tear her from her lover's arms, fit foe for Paris. Now new wounds he feels, and burns, inflamed by mad Cassandra's love. And now that Troy is conquered, home he comes, a captive's husband, Priam's son-in-law. Arise, my soul, no easy task essay, be swift to act. What, dost thou, sluggish, wait till Phrygian rivals wrest thy power away? Or do thy virgin daughters stay thy hand? Or yet Orestes, image of his sire? Nay, 'tis for these thy children thou must act, lest greater ills befall them. For behold, a mad stepmother soon shall call them hers. Through thine own heart, if so thou must, prepare to drive the sword, and so slay two in one. Let thy blood flow with his, in slaying die. For death is sweet, if with a foeman shared.
My queen, restrain thyself, check thy wild wrath, and think how great thy task. Atrides comes, wild Asia's conqueror and Europe's lord. He leads Troy captive, Phrygia subdued. 'Gainst him wouldst thou with sly assault prevail? Whom great Achilles slew not with his sword, though he with angry hand the weapon drew, nor Telamonian Ajax crazed with rage, nor Hector, Troy's sole prop and war's delay, nor Paris' deadly darts, nor Memnon black, nor Xanthus choked with corpses and with arms, nor Simois' waves empurpled with the slain, nor Cycnus, snowy offspring of the sea, nor warlike Rhesus with his Thracian band, nor that fierce maid who led the Amazons, armed with a deadly battle-axe and shield. This hero, home returned, dost thou prepare to slay and stain thy hearth with impious blood? Would Greece, all hot from conquest, suffer this? Bethink thee of the countless steeds and arms, the sea abristle with 1,000 ships, the plains of Ilium soaked with streams of blood, Troy taken and in utter ruin laid. Remember this, I say, and check thy wrath, and bid thy thoughts in safer channels run.
Exit Nurse and Clytemnestra. Enter Aegisthus.
The fatal day which I was born to see, toward which I've ever looked with dread, is here. Why dost thou fear, my soul, to face thy fate and turn away from action scarce begun? Be sure that not thy hand is ordering these dire events, but the relentless gods. Then put thy shame-bought life in pawn to fate, and let thy heart drain suffering to the dregs. To one shameful birth, death is a boon.
Enter Clytemnestra.
Thou comrade of my perils, Leda's child, be with me still in this, and thy false lord, this valiant sire, shall pay thee blood for blood. But why does pallor blanch thy trembling cheeks? What bodes this softened face, this listless gaze?
My husband's love has met and conquered me. Let us retrace our steps, while still there's room, to that estate whence we should ne'er have come. Let even now fair fame be sought again, for never is it over late to mend. Who grieves for sin is counted innocent.
What madness this? Dost thou believe or hope that Agamemnon will be true to thee? Though no grave fears of conscious guilt begot annoyed thy soul with thoughts of punishment, still would his swelling o'er-inflated pride create in him a dour and headstrong mood. Harsh was he to his friends while Troy still stood. How, think'st thou, has the fall of Troy pricked on his soul, by nature harsh, to greater harshness? Mycenae's king he went, he will return her tyrant. So doth fortune foster pride. With how great pomp this throng of rivals come, But one of these, surpassing all the rest, Apollo's priestess, holds the king in thrall. And wilt thou meekly share thy lord with her? But she will not. A wife's last infamy, to see her rival ruling in her stead. No throne nor bed can brook a rival mate.
Aegisthus, why dost drive me headlong on, and fan to flames again my dying wrath? For if the victor has his right employed to work his will upon a captive maid, his wife should not complain or reck of this. The law that binds the man fits not the king. And why should I, myself in conscious guilt, make bold to sit in judgment on my lord? Let her forgive who most forgiveness needs.
In very truth, there's room for mutual grace. But thou knowest naught of royal privilege. Thee will the king judge harshly. To himself a milder law in gentler mood apply. And this they deem the highest pledge of power, if what to common mortals is denied is given by general will to them alone.
He pardoned Helen. Home is she returned, to Menelaus joined, though east and west have been engulfed for her in common woe.
But Menelaus nursed no secret love, which closed his heart unto his lawful wife. Thy lord seeks charge against thee, cause of strife. Suppose thy heart and life were free from guilt. What boots an honest life, a stainless heart, when hate condemns the suppliant unheard? Wilt thou seek Sparta's shelter and return unto thy father's house? No shelter waits the scorned of kings. That hope were false indeed.
None knows my sin save one most faithful friend.
In vain. No faith is found in royal courts.
But surely gifts will buy fidelity.
Faith bought by gifts is sold for other gifts.
My strength and purity of soul revive. Why wouldst thou thwart me? Why with cozening words wouldst thou persuade me to thy evil course? Dost think that I would leave a king of kings and stoop to wed an outcast wretch like thee?
What? Seem I less than Atreus' son to thee, who am Thyestes' son?
Why, so thou art, and grandson too.
My getting shames me not, for Phoebus' self is voucher for my birth.
Name Phoebus not with thine incestuous stock, who checked his flying steeds and fled the sky, withdrawn in sudden night, lest he behold thy father's feast. Wouldst thou besmirch the gods, thou, trained to revel in unlawful love? Then get thee gone in haste, and rid mine eyes of that which doth disgrace this noble house. This home is waiting for its king and lord.
Exile is naught to me, for I am used to woe. At thy command I'll farther flee than from this house. I but await thy word to plunge my dagger in this woeful breast.
Clytemnestra, aside.
Shall I in cruel scorn desert him now, who sin in company should suffer so?
To Aegisthus.
Nay, come with me. We will together wait the issue of our dark and dangerous fate.
Exeunt into the palace. Chorus.
Sing Phoebus' praise, O race renowned, with festal laurel wreathe your heads, and let your virgin locks flow free, ye Argive maids, and ye who drink of the cold Erasinus, who dwell by Eurotas, who know the green banks of the silent Ismenus, come join in our singing, and do ye swell our chorus, ye far Theban daughters, whom the child of Tiresias, Manto the seer, once taught to bow down to the Delian gods. Now peace has come, unbend thy victorious bow, O Apollo, lay down from thy shoulder thy quiver of arrows, and let thy tuneful lyre resound to the touch of thy swift flying fingers. No lofty strain be thine today, but such as on thy milder lyre thou art wont to sound when the learned Muse surveys thy sports. And yet, an thou wilt, strike a heavier strain, as when thou didst sing of the Titans o'ercome by Jupiter's hurtling bolts. When mountain on lofty mountain piled, Pelion, Ossa, and pine-clad Olympus, built high to the sky for the impious monsters their ladders' rocky rounds. Thou too be with us, Juno, Queen, who sharest the throne of heaven's Lord. Mycenae's altars blaze for thee. Thou alone dost protect us, anxious and suppliant. Thou art the goddess of peace, and the issues of war are thine, and thine are the laurels of victory twined on the brow of our king Agamemnon. To thee the boxwood flute resounds in solemn festival. To thee the maidens strike the harp in sweetest song. To thee the votive torch is tossed. The gleaming heifer, all unmarred by the plow's rough touch, falls at thy shrine. And thou, child of the Thunderer, Pallas illustrious, hear, before whose might the Dardanian walls have trembled and fallen to dust. Thee maidens and matrons in chorus united, exalt and adore. At thy approach thy temple doors swing open wide, while the welcoming throng, with garlands bedecked, rejoice at thy coming. And feeble tottering elders come to pay their vows of thanks and praise, and pour their offerings of wine with trembling hands, and to thee with mindful lips we pray. Bright Trivia Lucina called, thy native Delos didst thou bid stand fast upon the sea, and float no more, the wandering mock of winds. And now with firmly fixed root it stands secure, defies the gale, and, wont of old to follow ships, now gives them anchorage. Proud Niobe thy vengeance felt, who thy divinity defied. Now, high on lonely Sipylus, she sits and weeps in stony grief. Though to insensate marble turned, her tears flow fresh forevermore. And now both men and women join in praise to the twin divinities. But thee above all gods we praise, our Father and our Ruler thou, Lord of the hurtling thunderbolt, at whose dread nod the farthest poles do quake and tremble. O Jove, thou founder of our race, accept our gifts, and have regard unto thy faithful progeny. But lo, a warrior hither comes in haste, with wonted signs of victory displayed, for on his spear a laurel wreath he bears. Eurybates, our king's own messenger.
End of Act 2. Act 3 of Agamemnon by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, translated by Frank Justice Miller. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Act 3. Enter Eurybates with laurel-wreathed spear.
Ye shrines and altars of the heavenly gods, ye lairs of my fathers, after long and weary wanderings, scarce trusting yet my longing eyes, I give ye grateful thanks. Pay now your vows which you have vowed to heaven, ye Argive people, for behold your king, the pride and glory of this land of Greece, back to his father's house as victor comes.
Enter Clytemnestra in time to hear the concluding words of the herald.
Oh, joyful tidings that I long to hear! But where delays my lord, whom I with grief for 10 long years have waited? Doth the sea still stay his course, or hath he gained the land?
Unharmed by glory crowned, Increased in praise he hath set foot upon the long-sought shore.
Then hail this day with joy, and thank the gods who, though their favouring aid was late bestowed, at last have smiled propitious on our cause. But tell me thou, does yet my brother live? Say, too, how fares my sister Helena?
If prayer and hope prevail, they yet survive. No surer tidings is it given to speak of those who wander on the stormy sea. Scarce had the swollen highways of the deep received our fleet, when ship from kindred ship was driven, and lost amid the gathering gloom. Even Agamemnon's self in doubt and fear went wandering upon the trackless waste, and suffered more from Neptune's buffetings than he had e'er endured in bloody war. And now a humble victor home he comes, with but a shattered remnant of his fleet.
But say what fate hath swallowed up my ships, and scattered our great chieftains o'er the sea?
A sorry tale 'twould be, thou bidst me mix the bitter message with the sweet. But I, alas, am sick at heart, and cannot tell for very horror our most woeful tale.
But tell it even so, for he who shrinks from knowledge of his woe has greater fear, and ills half seen are worse than certainty.
When Troy lies smouldering 'neath our Grecian fires, we quickly lot the spoil and seek the sea in eager haste. And now our weary sides are eased of the falchion's wonted load. Our shields along the vessel's lofty sterns unheeded hang, and once again our hands, long used to swords, are fitted to the oar. And all impatiently we wait the word. Then flashed from Agamemnon's ship the sign that bade us homeward speed, and clear and loud the trumpet pealed upon our joyful ears. The flagship's gilded brow gleamed on ahead, the course directing for 1,000 ships. A kindly breeze first stole into our sails, and urged us softly on. The tranquil waves scarce rippled with the zephyr's gentle breath. The sea was all a-glitter with the fleet, which lit even while it hid the watery way. 'Tis sweet to see the empty shores of Troy, the broad plains left in lonely solitude. The eager sailors ply the bending oars, hands aiding sails, and move their sturdy arms with rhythmic swing. The furrowed waters gleam and sing along the sides, while rushing prows besprinkle all the sea with hoary spray. When fresher breezes fill our swelling sails, we cease from toil, and, stretched along the thwarts, we watch the far-off shores of Ilium, fast fleeing as our vessels seaward fare, or tell old tales of war, brave Hector's threats, his corpse dishonored and again restored to purchased honors of the funeral pyre, and Priam sprinkling with his royal blood the sacred altar of Hersian Jove. Then to and fro amid the briny sea the dolphins sport and leap the heaving waves, with arching backs now race in circles wide, now swim beside us in a friendly band, now dash ahead or follow in our wake. Anon in wanton sport they smite our prows, and so our 1,000 rushing barks surround. Now sinks the shore from view, the spreading plains, and far off Ida seems a misty cloud. And now, what but the sharpest eye can see, Troy's rising smoke blurs dim the distant sky. Sun was bringing weary mortals rest, and waning day was giving place to night, when clouds began to fill the western sky, and dim the luster of the sinking sun. The grim prognostic of a rising gale, young night had spangled all the sky with stars, and empty sails hung languid on the masts, when lo, foreboding sighings of the wind spring from our landward side. The hidden shore resounds afar with warning mutterings. The rising waves anticipate the storm. The moon is blotted out, the stars are hid, the sea leaps skyward, and the sky is gone. Gloom broods o'er all, but not of night alone. For blinding mists add blackness to the night, and murky waves with murky sky contend. Then, in concerted rush from every hand, the winds fall roughly on the ravished sea, and heave its boiling billows from the depths, while east with west wind struggles, south with north, each wields his wonted arms to lash the sea. The fierce Strymonian blast, with rattling hail, roars on, and Libyan Auster heaps the waves upon the seething sands. Nor those alone provoke the strife, for raving Notus firsts grows big with bursting clouds, and swells the waves, and boisterous Eurus shakes the Orient, the far Arabian realms and morning seas. What dire disaster did fierce Chorus work, his dark face gleaming forth upon the deep? We thought the very heavens would be rent, the gods fall down from out the riven sky, and all revert to chaos as of old. The waves opposed the winds in turn hurled back the warring waves. Nor was the sea within itself contained, but lifted high. It mingled with the streaming floods of heaven, nor were we solaced in our dreadful plight by open view and knowledge of our ills. For darkness, like the murky night of Styx, hedged in our view. Yet was this darkness rent when flashing lightnings cleft the inky clouds with crashing bolts. Yet even this fearful gleam was welcome to our eyes. So sweet it is to those in evil plight to see their ills. The flea assists its own destruction too, prow dashing hard on prow, and side on side. Now sinks it headlong in the yawning flood, and now, belched forth, it sees the air again. One plunges down, of its own weight compelled. Another, through its gaping side, invites destruction from the raging floods. A third is smothered by the 10th and mightiest wave. Here idly floats a mangled, shattered thing, of all its boastful decoration shorn. And there a ship sails, sans sails and oars and all. No lofty mast with hanging spars remains, but helpless hulks the shattered vessels drift upon the boundless sea. Amid such ills, of what avail the hardy sailor's art? Cold horror holds our limbs. The sailors stand in dumb amaze, and all their tasks forget, while all in abject terror drop their oars, and turn their wretched souls to heaven for aid. Now, marvel of the fates, with common vows, the Greeks and Trojans supplicate the skies. Now Pyrrhus envies great Achilles' fate, Ulysses, Ajax, Menelaus, Hector's, and Priam seem to Agamemnon blessed. Ye all who perished on the plains of Troy, whose lot it was to die by human hand, are counted blessed of heaven, secure in fame, for they rest safely in the land they won. Shall winds and waves engulf in common fate the faint of heart who nothing noble dare, and those brave souls who quit themselves like men? Must we for naught resign ourselves to death? O thou of gods who art not even yet with these our evil fortunes satisfied, at last have pity on our woeful plight, which Ilium itself would weep to see, if still thine anger holds, and 'tis decreed that we of Greece must perish utterly. Why doom these Trojans, for whose sake we die? To share our fate, allay the raging sea? For this our fleet bears Greeks and Trojans too. So prayed we, but in vain our suppliant words were swallowed by the raging storm. And lo, another shape of death, for Pallas, armed with those swift bolts her angry father wields, essays what ruin dire her threatening spears, her aegis set with stony Gorgon's head, and these her father's thunderbolts can work. Unconquered by his ills, with daring soul bold Ajax struggles on. Him, shortening sail with halyards strained, a falling thunderbolt smote full. Again the goddess poised her bolt, with hand far backward drawn, like Jove himself, and hurled it true with shock impetuous. Straight fell the bolt, and piercing man and ship, it strewed them both in ruin on the sea. Still undismayed, he overtops the waves, all charred and blasted like some rugged cliff, and bravely breasts the wildly raging sea. Still gleaming with the lightning's lurid glare, he shines amid the blackness like a torch, which sheds its beams afar upon the deep. At length a jutting rock he gains, and shouts in madness, "Now have I overcome the sea! The flames, 'tis sweet to conquer sky and waves, the thunderbolts and her who brandished them. I've braved the terrors of the god of war. With my sole arm I fronted Hector, huge, nor did the darts of Phoebus frighten me. Those gods together with their Phrygians I set at naught, and shall I quake at thee? Thou hurl'st with weakling's hand another's bolts, but what if Jove himself?" When madly thus he dared blaspheme the gods, great Neptune with his trident smote the rock, and whelmed its tottering bulk beneath the sea. So falling with its fall the madman lies, by earth and fire and billows overcome. But us, poor shipwrecked, hopeless mariners, a worse destruction waits. There is a reef, low-lying, treacherous with ragged shoals, where false Caphareus hides his rocky foot, beneath the whirling waters of the sea. Above this reef the billows heave and dash, and madly seethe with each recurring wave. Higher o'er the spot a frowning crag projects, which views on either side the spreading sea. There distant lie thine own Pelopian shores, and there the curving isthmus deep withdrawn, shielding the broad Aegean from the west. There blood-stained Lemnos looms, here Chalcis lies, and yonder wind-locked Aulis peaceful port. This lofty cliff old Nauplius occupied, with hate inspired for Palamedes' sake. There his accursed hand a beacon raised, and lured us onward to the fatal spot. Now hang our barks by jagged rocks transfixed, or founder, wrecked and wrecking, in the shoals. And where but now our vessels sought to land, they flee the land and choose the angry waves. With dawn the sea's destructive rage was spent, and full atonement had been made to Troy. Then came the sun again, and brightening day revealed the awful havoc of the night.
I know not which were better, grief or joy. I do rejoice to see my lord again, and yet my kingdom's losses counsel tears. O Father Jove, at whose august command the sounding heavens quake, regard our race, and bid the angry gods be merciful. Let every head be decked with festal wreath, the flute resound, and at the stately shrine let snowy victims fall in sacrifice. But lo, a grieving throng with locks unkempt, the Trojan women come, and at their head with step majestic, queenly, heaven-inspired, Apollo's bride, with his own laurel tired.
Enter band of Trojan women, led by Cassandra.
Alas, how bitter yet how sweet of thing, this love of life we mortals cherish so. What madness, when the door stands open wide, that frees us from our ills, and death calls loud, and welcomes us to everlasting rest. Who finds that refuge fears no more these nameless terrors, these assaults, these insolent assaults of fate, and sidelong glancing bolts of Jove. Deep peace of death, no frenzied burgher throng to fear, no victor's threatening madness here, no wild seas ruffled by the blast, no host in serried battle mast, where whirling clouds of dust disclose the savage riders to their foes, no nation falling with its cities fall, mid smouldering battlement and crumbling wall, no wasting fires, no burning pyres, and all the horrors impious war inspires. They from the servile bonds of fate this human life emancipate, who fickle fortune dare to brave, and face the terrors of the grave, who joyful view the joyless Styx, and dare their mortal span to fix. How like a king, how like a god on high, is he who faces death nor fears to die. In one dark night we saw our city doomed, when Doric fires the Dardan homes consumed, but not in battle, not by warlike arts, as once it fell beneath our city's darts. No son of Thetis dealt the blow, which wrought our final overthrow, nor his loved friend Patroclus hight, when once in borrowed armor dight, he put our Trojan chiefs to flight, nor when Pelides' self gave o'er the fierce resentment that he bore, and sped him forth on vengeance bent. Not even in such evils pent did Troy to cruel fortune bend, but struggled bravely to the end, her bitter fate for 10 long years to stand, and fall at last by one vile trickster's hand. In memory still we see the monstrous bulk of that pretended and most fatal gift, the Grecian horse, which we, too credulous, with our own hands into our city led. The noisy-footed monster stumbled oft upon the threshold of the city gate, while in its roomy hold crouched kings in war. And we might well have turned their crafty arts to work their own destruction. But alas, we neither saw nor heeded. Oftentimes the sound of clashing shields smote on our ears, and low and angry mutterings within, where Pyrrhus 'gainst the shrewd Ulysses strove. Now free from fear our Trojan youth crowd round to touch the sacred chords. With joyous hands Astyanax here leads his youthful playmates on, while midst the maidens gaily comes the maid Polyxena, foredoomed to bleed upon Achilles' tomb. Mothers in festal garments bring their votive offerings to the gods, and sires press gaily round the shrines. Throughout the town all faces tell one tale of joy. E'en Hecuba, who since her Hector's fatal pyre had never ceased her tears, was glad. But now, unhappy grief, what first, what last, dost thou prepare to weep? Our city walls in ruin laid, though built by heavenly hands, our shrines upon their very gods consumed. Nay, nay, long since our weary eyes have dried their tears for these, but now we weep, O Father, King, for thee. We saw with our own eyes, we saw the old man slain by Pyrrhus' impious hand, whose scanty blood scarce stained the gleaming brand.
Restrain your tears which lingering time awaits, ye Trojan dames. Weep not for me and mine. Let each bewail her several woes. But I, For my own heavy grief have tears enough.
Yet 'tis a balm of grief to know that our own tears with others flow. More sharply gnaws the hidden care, which we with others may not share. And thou, though strong of soul, and inured to grief, canst not in thine own weeping find relief. Though Philomel for Aetas sing her sad sweet notes in wakening spring, though Procne with insistent din bewail her husband's hidden sin, not these, with all their passionate lament, can voice the sorrows in thy bosom pent. Let Cygnus raise his dying song, and its soft plaintive strains prolong. Let Halcyon mourn her chaos brave, a flutter o'er the tossing wave. Let priest of tower-crowned Cybele their tears for Attis share with thee. Still, would our tears in no such measure flow, for suffering like these no limits know.
Cassandra lays aside her fillets.
But why dost lay aside the sacred wool? Most by the wretched should the gods be feared.
But ills like mine o'erleap the bounds of fear. I supplicate the heavenly gods no more, for now am I beyond their power to harm, and I have drained to dregs the cup of fate. No country have I left, no sister, sire, for tombs and altars have my blood consumed. Where is that happy throng of brothers now? Departed all. And only weak old men remain within the lonely palace walls to serve the wretched king, and these, alas, throughout those stately chambered halls behold, have Spartan Helen, none but widowed wives. And Hecuba, proud mother of a race of kings, herself the queen of Phrygia, fecund for funereal pyres, became the mock of fickle fate, and now in bestial form barks madly round the ruins of her home, surviving Troy, son, husband, and herself.
Why falls this sudden silence on her? See, her cheeks are pale, and fits of trembling fear possess her frame. Her locks in horror rise, and we can hear, though pent within her breast, the loud pulsations of her fluttering heart. Her glance uncertain wanders, and anon her eyes seem backward turned into herself, then fix again, and harshly stare abroad. Now higher than her wont she lifts her head, and walks with stately step, and now she strives to open her reluctant lips. At last, though struggling still against the inspiring God, the maddened priestess speaks with muttered words.
Why prick me on with fury's goads anew, ye sacred slopes of high Pharnaces? Why must I, insensate, prophesy afresh? Away, thou prophet god! I am not thine. Subdue the fires that smolder in my breast. Whose doom yet waits my frenzied prophecy? Now Troy is fallen. Must I still rave on and speak unheeded words? Oh, where am I? The kindly light has fled, and deepest night enshrouds my face, and all the heavens lie wrapped in deepest gloom. But see, with double sun, the day shines forth again, and doubled homes in doubled Argos seems to stand. Again I see Mount Ida's groves. The shepherd sits amid those awful goddesses to judge, oh fatal judgment, twixt their rival charms. Ye mighty kings, I warn ye, fear the fruit of stolen love. That rustic foundling soon shall overthrow your house. Beware the queen. Why does she madly in her woman's hand those naked weapons bear? Whom does she seek with brandished battle-axe, though Spartan-bred, like some fierce warrior of the Amazons? What horrid vision next affronts mine eyes? A mighty Afric lion, king of beasts, lies low, death-smitten by his cruel mate, while at his mangled neck a low-born beast gnaws greedily. Why do you summon me? Saved only of my house, ye kindred shades. I'll follow thee, my father buried deep beneath the stones of Troy, and thee, O prop of Phrygia, the terror of the Greeks, I see, though not in brave and fair array, as once thou camest, still flowing with the glow of burning ships. but with thy members torn and foully mangled by the dragging throngs. And thee, O Troilus, I follow too, alas, too quickly met with Peleus' son. I see thy face, my poor Deiphobus, past recognition sacred. Is this the gift of thy new wife? Ah me, 'tis sweet to go along the borders of the Stygian pool, to see the savage hound of Tartarus, the realms of greedy Dis and Charon old, whose dusky skiff shall bear 2 royal souls across the murky Phlegethon today, the vanquished and the vanquisher. Ye shades, and thee, dread stream, by which the gods of heaven do swear their straightest oaths, I pray ye both, withdraw the curtain of your hidden realm, so that yon shadowy throng of Phrygians may look upon Mycenae's woes. Behold, poor souls, the wheel of fortune backward turns. See, see, the squalid sisters come, their bloody lashes brandishing and smoking torches half consumed. A sickly pallor overspreads their bloated cheeks, and dusky robes of death begrid their hollow loins. The gloomy night with fearsome cries resounds, and to my startled eyes dread sights appear. There lie the bones of that huge giant, far outstretched, upon a slimy marsh's brink, all white and rotting. Now I see that old man, wan with suffering, forget awhile the mocking waves, forget his burning thirst, to grieve for this disaster hovering about his house. But Dardanus exults to see his foeman's baleful destiny.
Now has her rage prophetic spent itself, and fallen away, like some devoted bull, which sinks with tottering knees before the shrine, beneath the sacrificial axe's stroke. Let us support her, ere she faint and fall. But see, Agamemnon comes at last, to greet his gods, with bay of victory crowned, and all in festal garb with glad accord. His consort welcomes her returning lord.
End of Act 3. Act 4 of Agamemnon by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, translated by Frank Justice Miller. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Act 4. Enter Agamemnon. He is met and greeted by his wife, who returns into the palace.
At last in safety am I home returned. O hail, beloved land! I bring thee spoil from many barbarous tribes, and Troy at length, so long the mistress of the haughty East, submits herself as suppliant to thee. But see, Cassandra faints, and trembling falls with nerveless form. Ye slaves, with speed uplift her, revive her drooping spirits with the chill of water on her face. Her languid eyes again behold the light of day. Arise, Cassandra, and recall thy sluggish sense. That shelter from our woes so long desired is here at last. This is a festal day.
Remember Ilium's festal day.
But come, we'll kneel before the shrine.
Before the shrine my father fell.
We will together pray in thankfulness to Jove.
Hercaean Jove.
Thou think'st of Ilium?
And Priam too.
This is not Troy.
Where a Helen is Troy.
Fear not thy mistress, though in captive's bonds.
But freedom is at hand.
Live on secure.
I think that death is my security.
For thee there's naught to fear.
But much for thee.
What can a victor fear?
What least he fears.
Keep her, ye faithful slaves, in careful guard, till she shall throw this mood of madness off, lest in unbridled rage she harm herself. To thee, O Father, who the blinding bolt doth hurl, at whose command the clouds disperse, who rul'st the starry heavens and the lands, to whom triumphant victors bring their spoils, and thee, O sister of thy mighty lord, Argolic Juno, here I offer now all fitting gifts, and so fulfill my vow.
Exit into the palace. Chorus of Argive women.
O Argos, famed for thy worthy sons, and dear to the jealous Juno's heart, how mighty the children who feed at thy breast! Thou hast added a god to the ranks of immortals, for Alcides has won by his labors heroic the right to be named with the lords of the sky. Alcides the Great! At his birth were the laws of the universe broken, for Jove bade the night to double the dew-laden hours of the darkness. At his command did the god of the sun to a sluggish pace restrain his car, and slow of foot around their course. O pale white moon, thy horses paced. He also checked his feet, the star, which hails the dawn, but glows as oft in the evening sky. And he marvelled that he should be called Hesperus. 'Tis said that Aurora, roused to her wonted task, but again sank back to her sleep on the breast of Tithonus. For long must the night be, and tardy the morning that waits for the birth of a hero divine. The swift whirling vault of the sky stood still to greet thee, O youth to the heavens appointed. Thy labors, how many and mighty! Thy hand has the terrible lion of Nemea felt, the fleet-footed hind, and the ravaging boar that Arcadia feared. Loud bellowed the bull when torn from the fields of Crete. Thou didst conquer the Hydra, which fed on destruction, and severed the last of its multiplied heads. The dread giant Geryon, 3 monsters in one, fell slain with one blow of thy crashing club. But his oxen, the famous Hesperian herds, were driven away as the spoils of the East. The terrible steeds of the Thracian king, which their master fed not on the grass of the Strymon, or the green banks of Hebrus, but cruel and bloody, with flesh of the hapless wayfarer he fed them. These steeds did our Hercules take, and in vengeance, as their last gory feast, gave the flesh of their master. The spoil of her girdle Hippolyte saw a gleam on her conqueror's breast. The Stymphalian bird fell down from the clouds, by his arrows death smitten, and the tree which bears the fruit of gold feared his approach, but despoiled of its treasures, lifted high in the air its burdenless branches. Forth from the ravaged grove he strode, with its golden fruit full laden. In vain did the deadly, sleepless dragon guard hear the sound of the musical metal. By triple chains to the upper world the hound of hell was meekly dragged. His 3 great mouths in silence gaped, amazed by the light of day. And greatest of toils, beneath his might, the lying house of Dardanus was overthrown, and felt the force of that dread bow which it was doomed in far-off time to feel again. 10 days sufficed for Troy's first overthrow, as many years her second ruins know.
End of Act 4. Act 5 of Agamemnon by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, translated by Frank Justice Miller. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Act 5. Cassandra, alone upon the stage, standing where she can see the interior of the palace, describes what is going on there, or else she sees it by clairvoyant power.
Great deeds are done within, the cruel match for 10 long years of suffering at Troy. Alas, What do they there? Arise, my soul, and take reward for thy mad prophecies. The conquered Phrygians are victors now. 'Tis well. O Troy, thou risest from the dust, for thou hast now to equal ruin brought Mycenae too. Low lies thy conqueror. O ne'er before has my prophetic soul so clearly seen the things of which it raved. I see, and no false image cheats my sight. I see it plainly. There, within the hall, a royal feast is spread, and thronged with guests, like that last fatal feast of ours at Troy. The couches gleam with Trojan tapestries. Their wine they quaff from rare old cups of gold that once cheered great Assaragus. And see, the king himself, in embroidered vestment clad, sits high in triumph at the table's head, with Priam's noble spoils upon his breast. Now comes his queen, and bids him put away the garment which his enemy has worn, and don instead the robe which she has made with loving thoughts of him. O horrid deed! I shudder at the sight. Shall that base man, that exile, smite a king, the paramour, the husband slay? The fatal hour has come. The second course shall flow with royal blood, and gory streams shall mingle with the wine. And now the king has donned the deadly robe, which gives him bound and helpless to his fate. His hands no outlet find. The clinging gown enwraps his head in dark and smothering folds. With trembling hand, the coward paramour now smites the king, but not with deadly wound, for in mid-stroke his nerveless hand is stayed. But, as some shaggy boar in forest wilds, within the net's strong meshes caught, still strives and strains to burst his bonds, yet all in vain. So Agamemnon seeks to throw aside the floating, blinding folds. In vain, and yet, though blind and bound, he seeks his enemy. Now frenzied Clytemnestra snatches up a two-edged battle-axe, and, as the priest, before he smites the sacrificial bull, marks well the spot and meditates his aim, so she her impious weapon balances. He has the blow. 'Tis done. The severed head hangs loosely down and floods the trunk with gore. Nor do they even yet their weapons stay. The base-born wretch hacks at the lifeless corpse, while she, his mate, pursues her bloody task. So each responds to each in infamy. Thyestes' son, in very truth he is, while she to Helen proves her sisterhood. The sun stands doubtful on the edge of day. Shall he go on, or backward bend his way?
Remains beside the altar. Enter Electra, leading her little brother, Orestes.
Flee, sole avenger of my father's death. Oh, flee and shun these impious butchers' hands. Our royal house is utterly overthrown, our kingdom gone. But see, a stranger comes, his horses driven to their utmost speed. Come, brother, hide thyself beneath my robe. But, oh, my foolish heart, whom dost thou fear? A stranger? Nay, thy foes are here at home. Put off thy fears, for close at hand I see the timely shelter of a faithful friend.
Enter Strophius, in a chariot, accompanied by his son, Pylades.
I, Strophius, had left my Phocaean realm, and now, illustrious with the Olympic palm, I home return. My hither course is bent to gratulate my friend, by whose assault has Ilium fallen after years of war.
Strophius, noticing Electra's distress.
But why these flowing tears and looks of woe? And why these marks of fear? I recognize in thee the royal house. Electra, why, when all is joyful here, dost thou lament?
My father lies within the palace, slain by Clytemnestra's hand. His son is doomed to share his father's death. Aegisthus holds the throne which he through guilty love has gained.
Oh, happiness that never long endures.
By all thy kindly memories of my sire, by his proud sceptre known to all the earth, and by the fickle gods, I pray thee, take my brother hence, and hide him from his foes.
Though dead Agamemnon bids me fear, I'll brave the danger, and thy brother save. Good fortune asks for faith. Adversity compels us to be true.
Strophius takes Orestes into the chariot.
My lad, attend. Wear this wild olive wreath upon thy brow, the noble prize I won on Pisa's plain. And hold above thy head this leafy branch, the palm of victory, that it may be a shield and omen of success to thee. And do thou too, O Pylades, my son, who dost as comrade guide thy father's car, from my example faith and friendship learn. Do you, swift steeds, before the eyes of Greece, speed on in flight, and leave this faithless land.
Exeunt at great speed. Electra looking after them.
So is he gone. His car at reckless pace fast vanishes from sight. And now my foes, with heart released from care, will I await, and willingly submit my head to death. Here comes the bloody conqueror of her lord, and bears upon her robes the stains of blood. Her hands still reek with gore, and in her face she bears the witness of her impious crime. I'll hie me to the shrine, and kneeling here, I'll join Cassandra in our common fear.
Enter Clytemnestra, fresh from the murder of her husband. Clytemnestra to Electra.
Thou base, unfilial and froward girl, thy mother's foe, by what authority dost thou, a virgin, seek the public gaze?
Because I am a virgin have I left the tainted home of vile adulterers.
Who would believe thee chaste?
I am thy child.
Thou shouldst thy mother speak with gentler tongue.
Shall I learn filial piety of thee?
Thou hast a mannish soul, too puffed with pride, but tamed by suffering thou soon shalt learn to play a woman's part.
A woman's part? Yea, truly, 'tis to wield the battle-axe.
Thou fool! Dost think thyself a match for us?
For us? Hast thou another husband then? Speak thou as widow, for thy lord is dead.
As queen I soon shall curb thy saucy tongue and break thy pride. But meanwhile, quickly tell, where is my son? Where is thy brother hid?
Far from Mycenae fled.
Then bring him back.
Bring back my father too.
Where lurks the boy?
In safety, where he fears no rival's power. This will content a loving mother.
Yes, but not an angry one. Thou diest today.
Oh, let me perish by thy practised hand. Behold, I leave the altar's sheltering side. Wilt plunge the knife into my tender throat? I yield me to thy will. Or dost prefer at one fell stroke to smite away my head? My neck awaits thy deadly aim. Let crime by other crime be purged. Thy hands are stained, and reeking with thy murdered husband's blood. Come, cleanse them in the fresher stream of mine.
Enter Aegisthus.
Thou partner of my perils and my throne, Aegisthus, come. This most unnatural child assails her mother, and her brother hides.
Thou mad and foolish girl, restrain thy tongue, for such wild words offend thy mother's ears.
Thou arch contriver of most impious crime, wilt thou admonish me? Thou base-born wretch, thou sister's son, and grandson of thy sire.
Aegisthus, how canst thou restrain thy hand from smiting off her head? But hear my word. Let her give up her brother or her life.
Nay, rather in some dark and stony cell let her be straight confined, and there perchance, by cruel tortures racked, will she give up whom now she hides. Resourceless, starving there in dank and loathsome solitude immured, widowed ere wedded, exiled, scorned of all. Then will she, though too late, to fortune yield.
Oh, grant me death.
If thou shouldst plead for life, I'd grant thee death. A foolish ruler he who balances by death the score of sin.
Can any punishment be worse than death?
Yes, life for those who wish to die. Away, ye slaves, seek out some dark and lonely cave, far from Mycenae's bounds, and there in chains confine this bold, unmanageable maid, if haply prison walls may curb her will.
Electra is led away. Clytemnestra indicating Cassandra.
But she shall die, that rival of my couch, that captive bride. Go, drag her hence at once, that she may follow him she stole from me.
Nay, drag me not, for I with joy will go, outstripping your desire. How eagerly I hasten to my Phrygians, to tell the news. The ocean covered with the wrecks of Argive ships. Mycenae overthrown. A leader of 1,000 leaders slain, and thus atoning for the woes of Troy, by woman's gift of wantonness and guile. Make haste, I falter not, but thank the gods that I have lived to see my land avenged.
O maddened wretch, thy death I wait to see.
A fateful madness waits as well for thee.
End of Act 5. End of Agamemnon by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, translated by Frank Justice Miller.